About 90%, Mr. President, of my personal and political philosophy is don't hurt someone unless they're trying to hurt you first. Don't take other people's stuff and leave me alone. Let me live my life, exercising the free will and responsibility that God gave. Which leads me to my first topic, Mr. President. Iran. I'm not talking about the people of Iran. I'm talking about the political and religious leadership of the government of Iran. I'm talking about the Ayetollah and his followers. And in America, we separate government from religion. Not in Iran, thanks to the Ayatollah. The government tells you what religion to practice. The government is the religion. Now, everybody has the right to believe what they want. I'll tell you what the Ayatollah believes. He's Muslim. But his strain of Islam says that if you do not agree with his interpretation of God, then you deserve to die. You do. And he acts on that belief. Now, let me say again, the Ayatollah is entitled to believe what he wants. I was raised a Presbyterian. My parents founded 2 Presbyterian churches. When Becky and I got married, Becky was a Methodist. I was a Presbyterian. We compromised. I became a Methodist. I'm entitled to believe what I want. But the Ayatollah not only thinks that I'm going to hell because I don't agree with his religion, he wants to kill me. He wants to kill Americans and Israelis and anybody who does not believe in his jihad and drink our blood out of a boot. And he's acted on that. I don't need to tell you, Mr. President. I don't need to tell you. And he has acted on that. And that's not acceptable. Now, a lot of the people in Iran, the good people in Iran, don't agree with Ayatollah. If they disagree with him too loudly, he just kills them. Now the Ayatollah, it's actually been the case for the last, 10, 15, 20 years. The Ayatollah has decided he wants a nuclear war yet. Why should we care? You know, I hear from some of my fellow Americans all the time, why do we need to be involved in Iran? Why should we care? Well, number one, we're not trying to start a war in Iran. The president is trying to end a war in Iran. If the Ayatollah gets a nuclear weapon, he will use it. He could use it against America. He could use it against Israel. I don't know who he'll use it against, and I hope I'm wrong, but he will use it. And you know what else will happen? As soon as he gets a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia is going to get a nuclear weapon. And the UAE is going to get a nuclear weapon. And Japan's going to get a nuclear weapon. And South Korea, and I could go on and on and on.
About 90% of my personal and political philosophy is this: don't hurt someone unless they're trying to hurt you first. Don't take other people's stuff, and leave me alone. Simple, clean, almost childlike in its clarity. Let people live their lives. Let them exercise the free will and responsibility they believe they were given. That's the American instinct. But then we hit the other 10%. And that 10%, that's where Iran enters the conversation. Not the people of Iran, not the culture, not the history. The political and religious leadership And that changes everything. There is a critical distinction that must be made clearly and repeatedly. The people of Iran are not the regime of Iran. The leadership under the authority of the Ayatollah operates a system where religion and government are fused into one authority structure. In the United States, government and religion are institutionally separate. In Iran, the ruling religious doctrine defines state power. Everyone has the right to believe what they want. But here's the dividing line. Belief is one thing. Enforcement through violence is another. When a political system declares that disagreement deserves death and backs that belief with prisons, executions, and armed proxies, that is no longer private faith. That becomes geopolitical force, and that is where the concern begins. For years, Iran's leadership has pursued nuclear capabilities. Now, let's ask the question many Americans ask: why should we care? Because nuclear weapons do not operate in isolation. If Iran acquires a nuclear warhead, regional rivals will respond. Saudi Arabia will reconsider its posture, the UAE will reconsider, Japan and South Korea watch global precedents closely. The logic is simple and terrifying. More nuclear weapons, more nuclear states, more chances for miscalculation, more risk of catastrophe. Deterrence works until it doesn't. And when ideological extremism intersects with nuclear capability, the margin for error disappears. Nuclear weapons are only one layer. Iran's leadership has been linked to the support of regional militant groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, organizations responsible for violence that extends beyond the Middle East. Ballistic missile development continues, regional destabilization continues, internal repression continues. Reports of executions, imprisonments, and crackdowns against dissent have surfaced repeatedly over the years. Again, this is not about a population. This is about a governing structure that uses force externally and internally to preserve power. And if you value breakdowns like this clear, structured,
and the more nuclear weapons you have in the world, the more likely you are to have a nuclear war. But that's not the only thing the Ayatollah has done since he became the Ayatollah. He exports terrorism. He was the person behind Hamas and Hezbollah that have killed so many people throughout the world. Not just in the Middle East, but across the world, including, but not limited to, Americans. That's why we ought to care. The Ayatollah also has conventional ballistic missiles and is building more as we speak. Now, those missiles can't reach America yet, but they're working on one, and they can sure reach our military bases in the Middle East, and they can sure reach Israel. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. That's why we should care. And finally, the Ayatollah, if you disagree with him, and we've seen it happen on TV, we don't know how many people he's hung in the last 6 months. We don't know how many people he's tortured. I've seen estimates as high as 50,000. So that's what this business with Iran is all about. We're not trying to be the world's policeman. We're trying to stop the Ayatollah from being the world's policeman, who's getting a lot of support from President Xi Jinping in China and Vladimir Putin in Russia and Kim Jong-un in North Korea. So that's where we find ourselves, trying to stop this war. And to the Ayatollah, I would say, Ayatollah, you're entitled to believe what you want. You can hate me. You can believe that. I know you hate me and what I stand for. You know how I sleep at night knowing that you hate me? With the fan on. That's your right. But you can't act on that belief. Put down the nuclear weapons. Put down the nuclear enrichment. Stop exporting terrorism to Hamas and Hezbollah. End your missile program. Stop killing and torturing your people. That's all we want. And he's doing that as we speak. He's at war. We're trying to stop it. I'm not about to tell the president, give the president any advice. He has intelligence that I don't have. And I respect the fact that he's being very, very, very deliberate and careful in making a decision. If we make a deal with Iran, let's make sure we have a protocol to enforce it. because my experience in watching the Ayatollah through the years, I wouldn't trust this man if he was 3 days dead. I wouldn't trust him if he was 3 days dead. Anybody whose religion tells them that in order to be saved, they've got to go kill hundreds of millions of people, you can believe it if you want. But as far as I'm concerned, it's time to get a new religion. And that's what we're doing in Iran. Let me say it again. We're not trying to start a war. This war began a long time ago. We're trying to end it. Our president presiding today knows exactly what I talked about. He served honorably, had great physical, mental, and emotional expense in the Middle East. That's what we're trying to stop.
Stopping escalation is not warmongering. Preventing nuclear proliferation is not aggression. Containment is not conquest. The stated goal is not to start a war, it is to prevent one. Diplomacy is necessary, but diplomacy without enforcement is wishful thinking. Any agreement regarding nuclear development must include verification protocols, inspections, transparency, consequences. Trust is not a strategy, verification is. History has shown that agreements without accountability mechanisms collapse under pressure, and when the stakes include nuclear capability, hope is not a sufficient safeguard. This all circles back to that 90%. Don't hurt people. Don't take what isn't yours. Leave others alone. But when a governing ideology declares hostility as policy, funds proxy violence, and pursues weapons capable of catastrophic destruction, the conversation shifts from philosophy to defense. The goal is not domination, the goal is stability, the goal is deterrence. The goal is ending conflicts that began long before today's headlines. Because in a nuclear age, the cost of getting it wrong is not political. It's permanent. If you found this analysis valuable, share it. Start the conversation. Challenge the assumptions. Engage respectfully. And remember, simplicity works until someone decides it doesn't apply to them.